The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
Good morning, Clayton.
Good morning, Justin.
How are
Good
you?
morning. I'm great. I'm great. Good morning, podcast family. Our audience has increased a little bit.
Yeah, man. Um, so I think I told you that my wife is now a faithful listener.
Sweet.
Um, yep. And my brother commented the other day that he had been listening. So yeah, dude,
We're doing good.
we're going
That,
places.
that's high praise as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
More than two Craftons on my team? Holy smokes.
Now, yeah, now I don't know if he'll continue to listen,
Right.
but that's fine. We had a shot.
Yeah, we got there.
So what are you up to on this fine Saturday morning?
I'm feeling like I brought this. I'm feeling like I really earned this trophy. Best
Heck yeah.
dad.
Yeah, man.
That was a Christmas present, and they don't just give these away, by the way.
You gotta earn
Um,
them.
yeah, you got to earn these. Allie got me that for Christmas from the school. You remember the school shop you could go to?
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't because I was homeschooled, but my
Yeah,
kids went to it.
yeah, and maybe like 2 or 3 times a year, the library has that special store where you can go in, and it's just a racket. It's just a scam.
You talking like the book fair where
Yeah.
you can buy like the $4 erasers that
Uh-huh.
smell like grapes?
Or I used to get the posters of Lamborghinis,
Oh yeah.
and I could usually only afford one thing, but I would usually get a poster of Lamborghini and maybe some folders with Lamborghinis or Ferraris on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like uh so Silas used to get posters with like puppies on it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember what Margaret used to get, but it was rarely ever books that they wanted. So we would buy them a book, but it was all the extra crap, like the stickers and the posters and the erasers. And like you said, it's a racket.
Yeah, it's a scam.
And now, I guess to be fair, it's probably the goal of it is probably to like fund the library or fund the school. But
They say.
in terms of value, yeah, dude, worst shopping experience ever.
I mean, I'm getting pretty Trumpy with these school fairs. I'm thinking, Department of Education, do we
Get
need
out.
You're out of there.
Who's running these book fairs anyway?
Dude, so I'm not gonna go back on everything that I said before, but are you feeling a smidgen? And there's no such thing as a perfect leader. And I know Trump wasn't going to be perfect, far from it even, but I did feel like he was the best of the two choices that I had. Are you feeling a smidgen of buyer's remorse with these cabinet picks that you're hearing, or how do you feel about it?
I'm gonna be honest. The only thing I've been paying attention to for the past week is the UFO war that was supposed to happen and it didn't. And
My
ever
man,
since ever since that didn't happen, I've kind of checked out. I kind of
I,
like just I don't know what to believe anymore. I just don't.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and ask a question. Did you hear about this UFO war from TikTok?
I did. And that's all I'm hearing on TikTok.
Right,
It's nonstop.
right.
And the
Huh.
thing is, like,
It's almost like they got you figured out.
I think they do. I think they do. Because I was convinced enough.
Uh-huh.
Convinced isn't probably the word. Um,
You were
sus
led.
I believed.
Yeah.
I mean, I
You
believed with
wanted to
it,
believe.
just a smidgen of doubt.
Yeah.
And the thing that kind of struck me as kind of gave me the biggest question is everybody saying that
Questions
this
aren't good.
December 3rd is like when it's supposed to go down,
Uh-huh.
right? So I'm thinking, and they're showing videos from all over the world of these UFOs and like how
There was
they're,
no Kool-Aid, like you weren't supposed to drink anything on December 3rd, was there?
yeah, they're gonna mail me something and then I had to
Okay.
mix it up. No, like it's all over the world. So like Argentina and New Jersey and Arizona, whatever, all these UFOs. But then I got to thinking, like, when does it start on December 3rd? Is it like Eastern time or Mountain time, or is it like the US? Is it centered around the US? Um, so that was kind of my first thought that maybe they don't know what they're talking about. But then when it didn't happen, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what to believe anymore.
Well, I can fairly certainly say one thing you should stop believing is TikTok.
They had videos.
You know, yeah.
These are
Uh,
these are actual videos. I saw it with my own eyes.
yeah. TikTok's something else. I still haven't jumped on.
Well, I wish you would before they make it illegal, um, because
Mm,
I have all these videos to send you, and I sent one to my brother, I sent some to my wife, but no one really gets it like you do, Clayton.
right,
I
right,
need
right.
I need you on TikTok.
Um, well, I have been examining these cabinet picks.
Oh, what have you figured out?
Well, I haven't figured out anything. I know nothing. I've come to this realization. I think the only thing I got going for me is that I know nothing. So I'm
Okay.
able to look at some stuff with no bias because anyway, um he had Gates as his pick for AG as Attorney General. Trump, remember that?
I saw that.
And did you hear about why he's no longer in for Attorney General?
Uh, Sexual assault.
Well, I don't know if it was sexual assault. It was some sort of sexual misconduct. Oh shucks. And I thought for sure it was going to get smacked down. Like, of course, this is just liberal propaganda. And as soon as there was mention of this investigation, he's out. He's gone. And something that's even worse, yesterday I saw on my news, it came up as a headline that there was an ethics panel investigation in Congress to investigate Gates, and the Democrats wanted these findings released, and the Republicans blocked them.
Hmm.
Now, this is all I would say circumstantial evidence. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
just because he dropped out doesn't mean anything after just because it happened to be after they released the news of his sexual assaults or sexual misconduct. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. The fact that the Democrats, who have not been for transparency lately, at least that would be my critique of them, they've not been for disclosure and they've not been for transparency. They've not been for free speech in the last, definitely in the last 4, 8, 16 years. Um, they want this information released, and the Republicans told them no. The Republicans blocked it from these findings coming
Well,
out.
yeah. Yeah. That's because the Republicans don't want transparency. They want transparency when it suits them, and both sides, obviously.
Here, yeah, they want to be really what they want is control and power, but they want to be who the good guys. Both sides want to be the good guys. They're all just populist, at their core. They're all just desperately begging for approval of whoever they consider the masses. Like there's no ethical bone in these people's bodies.
What if you let's say that you had uh, some sort of misconduct in your background, sexual or otherwise.
Okay.
Um, can you just imagine, like,
I'm
use your
going out on a
imagination on
limb
this?
here.
Uh,
Step.
what? How would you even, practically speaking, how would you even allow your like allow yourself to get to that point where they say, "Hey, you've been nominated for Attorney General." Like, that there's some stuff that's going to come up. Like, they're not going to just miss it. They're not going to skip over it.
I think he was hoping for the power. He was trying to hitch on to Donald, Teflon Don, and Teflon Don has had sexual allegations
Mm.
and has even been kind of found not guilty but liable in civil court for like some sexual misconduct. I don't know enough about that, but I know that he has been found guilty. It was in a civil court, not a criminal court, and it was related to some sexual allegations. That's all I
Now,
know.
just one thing to point out for
Go
anybody that
ahead.
doesn't know is that in a civil court, the measure is 51%.
Right.
So you have to have a preponderance instead of beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
So, you know, not excusing
So
anything. I'm just saying that a civil trial is a little bit, actually quite a bit less, a
yeah,
lower standard.
substantially less. And yeah, that's interesting. That's maybe something that I took for granted. Not everybody knows the difference between criminal and civil court. So Teflon Don has had these sexual allegations bounce off of him in the past. He just says fake news, and the whole country buys it. And what's despicable enough is the news is so obviously corrupt and obviously lying, where you kind of have to believe him. When Teflon
Oh
Don,
yeah, yeah.
when Teflon Don says it, he's like, "That's a lie." You have to be like, "Well, they lie about everything else, so they might
Hmm.
as well be lying about this." Gates, I think, was hoping that momentum would carry, like he'd get some of that special sauce onto him. And the problem is, you're not Donald Trump,
So he's just kind of looking around like, hey, where'd everybody
right?
go? He's
Right?
just,
I'm in.
yeah. Uh, I'm all
Oh,
alone.
oh shit! They didn't
Yeah.
bring me with me.
They didn't follow.
And so as soon as yeah, as soon as there was mention of this conduct, I think he was hoping, in my very uneducated, 30,000 whatever foot view away, I think he was hoping that that special sauce would stick on him, and it just didn't. And so he's out.
Hmm.
He looks, I don't know. It looks like there was something there that he didn't want made public, or
Didn't he? And maybe this is the same thing. Wasn't there some controversy around him?
he ousted
Uh,
the House Speaker last year in a pretty epic way.
yeah. I thought I remembered some kind of controversy around him when he was defending Trump. I think it was when Trump was in office. I think it was during the impeachment hearings.
Hmm.
I know he was really outspoken in defending him, and I thought that something, and it may even have been the sexual assault cases or the misconduct cases. I just remember hearing his name and connecting it with something.
Yeah, one of the things that Trump's impeachment was closely related to, which, for us to be fair and balanced, was they were trying to impeach him one of the times for abusing his executive powers in investigating Hunter Biden. That was one of the things Trump was impeached for. They impeached him for abusing his executive powers for investigating Hunter Biden. And now, turns out, Hunter got a
The
pardon from dad.
the whole thing is such a freaking circus. Like
Wow.
not just
It's
that.
such
I
a
just
distracting, right?
the whole the whole political whatever landscape, whatever, is just
Yeah.
such crap. There's just
BS.
so much
They're all
dishonesty, and
clowns.
so
It
I
seems
don't.
like the system has the system gotten out of hand. Some would argue that it's still a perfect system if you follow the system. The problem is that we've stepped the system. I'm referring to the Constitution, but and those same people say that all our problems are coming from us stepping outside of the Constitution into like these bureaucracies, like these positions not vote. The only kind of bureaucracy allowed for in the Constitution was the judicial branch. And really, the only oversight is it said the judicial branch shall exist. There shall be a judicial branch. And after that, the judicial branch figured it out. That's the only kind of bureaucratic, as in not voted for, position allowed for in the Constitution.
Mhm.
Uh, Besides that, all these agencies are fairly new, like Roosevelt era and Woodrow Wilson era. Besides that, which is 1900s. Besides, before that, there was no agencies. There were departments of war and there was departments of commerce and things like this, but those were all kind of connected to, and they still are connected to, the executive branch. So, like, whenever Lincoln's guy went out, the guy who came in brought his whole new war cabinet, and they're all new employees down with him. There were no carryover bureaucrats like there are now. That got
Mhm.
instituted in the early 1900s. So I'm not saying that's efficient. It actually sounds like a nightmare, as far as efficiency wise. But
I mean, I think you kind of nailed it a few weeks ago when you were saying that really the we lost control when we started allowing
Money.
basically money to
Absolutely.
buy votes and to allow the words escaping me. When people go to the Capitol and
Lobby.
when lobbyists and the paid lobbyists and all that kind of stuff. Like
The PACs and the super PACs.
yeah, I think that's really, if there's an area where we've lost control or it's just like outlived its efficiency,
Yeah.
it would be that. I don't know that the system itself has failed.
Yeah. That was weird. That was Citizens United 2009, 2010. I think it all comes back to I think it's two separate cases, but it's all Citizens United 2009. And it was where the Supreme Court said that I guess it was two different decisions. Yeah, I think it was 2009, 2010. One of those where the Supreme Court said that a corporation has the same rights as a citizen's. So a corporation has free speech. A corporation has, every other right that a citizen would have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would mean that a corporation has the right to donate to a political party. And the other one, and of course, we can't compete with Google. We don't have the pockets that Google has. We definitely don't have the pockets that BlackRock has, but that's different. That's further on down the road. But even at the lower levels, whatever your big local Ford dealership family is, or whatever them, you don't have the pockets that they do. And so, yeah, that was a big death knell, saying that corporations have the same rights as people. But then when they said that super PACs can have unlimited contribution rights because they're not an entity. That was another thing, is corporations have the same rights as citizens, so they can donate. And then the other decision was that the super PACs can make unlimited contributions because they're neither a corporation or a citizens. So they don't have the same regulations that a citizen would, as in a cap of how much you can donate. So these super PACs come together and can and so the argument is that the more money you have, the easier it is. And I'd say that's true. The easier it is to win a campaign. But more money doesn't always equal a W. And I think we just saw that with Kamala.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I guess yes, it probably costs millions of dollars to run an efficient and effective presidential campaign.
Yeah.
But does it really, like, why does it cost so much? Why do you have to have millions and millions and millions of dollars to run a campaign?
I think that's when you're playing in the rules of the machine. When you're doing Bush, Gore, Clinton, Bush, McCain, Obama, those campaigns, you have to have so many ABC ads and so many NBC ads, and you have to have so many endorsements, and you have to have the speaker, and all these people are taking money. All these people are getting a piece of the pie. That's where your things are coming from. And you have to have airtime for these ads. You have to have the production, the staffing, all this. Yeah, that's when you're playing in the normal bounds of these traditional campaigns. Trump didn't play in those. He knew his number one asset was himself, because that's what got him to every other win in life, was him, when he was like, I got this. You guys step back.
Well, if you remember in his first campaign, he kind of just sidestepped the traditional media.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the big complaints that people had, or maybe
I
not.
would say he did that now, and he even capitalized on new media this time.
Yeah. Like just so I'm thinking of the first campaign. Like I remember he just took to Twitter. Like if the news wouldn't
He ran his whole
interview him,
campaign on
then
Twitter.
he'll just run his own, interview, or have
Until Twitter kicked him off. And this is an interesting question. Until Twitter kicked him off, which you'd say is a violation of his free speech. But the answer to that is Twitter's a private corporation. They don't have to guarantee free speech. But is Twitter a source of information for the public? I would say it is.
Yeah.
It's just like the New York Times or the LA Times. And so if Twitter, back then it was Twitter, or any social media, the argument I have is, so should Twitter censor? Should these social media places censor? Right?
I'm gonna put a pin in something about Twitter being just like the New York Times, but then go ahead.
Okay. Um, should social media, I'm going to write NYT so we go back to it. Should Twitter or should social media censor? And the extreme libertarian, so extreme libertarian is anarchy, and I don't think that works. But the extreme libertarian view would say no, free speech is unconditional free speech. Problem comes in whenever, I mean, there is some validity to words that cause a public panic, or maybe even, I wouldn't say fighting words, but I would, instigation. Like there has to
Yeah.
be a limit somewhere. You can't just come up and threaten. You can't make threats. Like that's assault, brother.
Well, those are in the law. That's not protected speech.
But right, that's not protected speech. So you shouldn't be able to say things, but that is a censor of free speech. Like those are already accepted censors of free speech,
Okay.
making a threat, causing a public panic, a public, whatever. I think that even falls into terrorism under the Kansas statute.
Yeah.
Um, so that's already censored free speech. We've already accepted that. Should social media then say censor speech on like misinformation? Because now you're getting into what's right today and what
Mm-hmm.
we think is right.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the argument is no. There should be no censorship on things that would say are already legal. Like there should be no child pornography. There should, because that's illegal. Even though, a mentally ill person would say that oh, that's art or that's whatever. That's free speech. So obviously there should be no child pornography, or there should be no sexual anything, crimes. There should be no crimes. That's what we should say. There should be no crimes. But if it's not a crime, should you censor someone from saying, uh, this president or this vice president's kid got caught with a laptop with child pornography, and it proves he was colluding with Chinese corporations and Ukrainian corporations? If you say that and then that gets censored as misinformation, should social media platforms have the right to censor what they deem misinformation? What do you think about that?
No, not at all. I am concerned a little bit though that you can't. We've already censored criminal activity, which we should.
Right.
The concern is that what if misinformation becomes a criminal activity? That's
Right.
scary, and I could see that happening. Like
That's what Tim Waltz was kind of advocating for.
I could absolutely see. Now I don't know necessarily.
And you know what? I'm going to say the Republicans were against free speech also whenever they went against the Democrats releasing the Matt Gaetz findings, because the Republicans had the right.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, nobody wants free speech when it doesn't benefit them.
Right.
Um,
When you're pointing out my flaws, I don't like free speech.
yeah, exactly. You should shut up. But I have a real hard time saying that Twitter or Facebook or any other social media would be the same or be held to the same standards as the New York Times or Washington Post or even Cake News, Wichita. Because, because if let's say I'm hosting a big backyard party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I invited everybody, bring your friends, everybody come. I can't control what they're talking about. I have zero control. Now I could, we could say, okay, well, we're gonna censor people, and so I don't know how that would work in this analogy, but the point is that it's different if I just have this big party, everybody's welcome, compared to I've got a business, I run this newspaper, you're my employee, I'm paying you, you represent me, like there's standards. That's just different.
Now, what if your business model is you're a platform for independent media? Like this is a platform for you to come and make whatever video you want. As long as it's not breaking these laws, this is a platform for you to come and make whatever video you want. Does that same thing, same thing you just described, like I'm inviting all my friends, but this party is a place for you to be able to broadcast your thoughts. What this
Okay.
party is a place for you to everyone's got a microphone and
Yeah.
everyone's got a camera.
It's open mic night.
It's open mic night
Okay.
times 300 million for the US, whatever
Yeah.
billion for the world. That's what you're pitching it as. That's your model. But I'm kind of defeating myself because I say the obvious thing is I'm describing different social media platforms that do that. And if they censor their own, then I would say that's a violation. But still, it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. But this is the business. I don't know. There's just no other options. But yeah.
The problem though is that one of the problems is that it's been proven that a lot of these social media companies are censoring
Yeah.
people for not criminal speech,
Not at
for
all.
speech that they don't like or that goes against their
They just don't agree with it.
right. And so doesn't it just can you have one without the other? I don't know that you can allow censorship without allowing censorship for the wrong reasons. Does that make
It's
sense?
always gonna be wrong to someone.
Yes, and you're always going to have ulterior motives.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a way for me to silence you, I just think that I don't know how you can keep that under control. I think it's just going to always lead to censorship of the opposing view.
I don't know what the answer to this is, but something that just popped into my mind is Socrates had a rule called every and only, and he didn't call it this rule, but like philosophers or academics who have like dissected Socrates has come up with this rule that he implemented on all of his virtues called every and only. But really what he used it in his questioning. And so Socrates, I always talk about Socrates and I know it's so boring. It's so lame.
No, man, I started listening to that audiobook. It's
okay.
Good. I'm digging it.
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah.
The every and only rule is something that he used to identify virtues. Like he was talking to one of these sophists who were considered the wise men. It's where we get the word sophisticated, because they were kind of wise, but they would be more like wise in the gaining of knowledge, not in how to be wise, not in how to think, but what to think. Like they were smart in that.
Facts, not philosophy.
Yes. And so naturally them and Socrates are always bumping heads. And he was talking to one of these guys about virtue, and he asked the question, can someone be, so the four main pillars of virtue that the Greeks had were wisdom, courage, justice, and temperate. And Socrates asked one of these sophists if someone can be courageous and not be wise. And what's your like immediate answer to that?
Yes.
Okay. Socrates so that's what the sophist said. The sophist said, obviously people can be courageous and not wise, because like you see courageous men in fights, you see courageous men, running from the police, you see courageous men doing all this stuff that would obviously not be wise, but they're showing courage. Socrates said, well, there's a difference between I'm thinking of a specific word. Anyway, he said there's a difference between self-confidence. He said all that boils down to self-confidence, either because they're drunk or because they have just a wild misconception of themselves. I know you're thinking about fighting a bear.
Yes.
I know you're thinking about fighting
That's
a bear.
exactly what came to mind. So you're telling me that
you have a self-confident, not courage.
Okay.
That's what Socrates said.
I'm going to have to reevaluate some things.
Okay. Socrates said that is a problem with self-confidence, not courage. He said the courage is actually to recognize what a danger is and to proceed knowing what that danger is. Like
Hmm.
even if it's to your own peril, which can cross lines with self-confidence, but is different than self-confidence. Even if it's to the point where I know I won't be able to take this bear, but I have to do something. I can't,
So
I'm not going to be a victim.
I hesitate to give this example a little bit because I always I always kind of resisted, like when we were both in law enforcement, and somebody would thank you for your service, whatever, and I always kind of resisted that, like I don't need it. But
You
you
didn't
would
tell
you
people that, did they?
no, I also thank you, I
Okay.
appreciate you. Um, but you would have exhibited courage. I would have. In the think of the many calls where
We did.
it's a burglary, or it's a homicide suspect, or it's a whatever dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And now most of the time, I actually didn't really consider it until afterwards. And after the fact, I'd be like, "Ooh, that was kind of
Yeah.
dangerous." But still, there are times when you're like, "Well, here we go," and that would be courage.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Socrates said that that courage actually is wisdom because you have to be able to first, what wisdom comes down to ultimately in Socrates' view was know thyself. It was painted on, or it was etched on the pillars of the uh shrine to Apollo in Athens, and it was like supposed to be the foundation of all knowledge. Know thyself. If like it's separating um man, the words are just escaping me, but separating irrational thoughts from actual reality, separating your feelings, like your feeling of a situation from the situation itself.
Hmm.
Like, my mother-in-law is a B word. Like, well, does everyone think your mother-in-law is a B word? Obviously not, because she has lots of friends, and so the problem's not with everyone, it's with you. Your relationship between you and okay, now we so this that's the Socratic thought and Socratic philosophy. Um, so he would say courage is a virtue, and it is also wise. That's what it is. Courage. So what he was saying is that the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance also overlap, and they all come into what we call virtue, like a virtuous man, a virtuous woman, a right woman, whatever. Um, and so he would say, I'm trying to bring the weave back, that you cannot have one without the other. Like, and it might be hard to spot the difference. So what I'm getting at eventually is that the government might say they have their best interests in mind, but they're not behaving that way. Man, what were we talking about before I got
So,
onto Socrates?
well, we were talking about whether there should be
Censorship?
censorship in with social media platforms, and the kind of the difference between, if I've got open mic night, am I responsible for what you say?
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I don't know. So it comes on to the onus of it comes on, I don't know. I don't know. I got too far away from that. But as far as wisdom and the separation between like the virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, and temperance is kind of tricky one anyway. Do you think you can be let's see, what would be another one? Just and not wise? Do you think a wise man can not be a just man?
Yeah, I think those would have to go hand in hand, because I think to be unjust is unwise.
And would you have to be just to be courageous?
No,
No. Um,
I mean, I think that you could pretty easily find examples of courageous men that were evil.
hmm. That how so? Like, what's an easy example of a courageous man? You'd say
Uh,
Hitler,
I mean,
but
I wouldn't. I
yeah.
could, but I wouldn't, because
Well,
I'm
I'm
not
just
gonna.
thinking of the worst man
But
to
yeah,
say.
yeah. I mean, think of that, or one of his generals, or like people that certainly knew they were headed to peril, but chose
Yes.
to do it anyway. Without, they didn't have justice in mind.
Well, okay. They had also the limiting factor is everyone's view. I'm not saying they're right.
Okay.
I'm not saying they're right, but also in their view, they had justified their actions. They and
Okay. So then, I mean, with that, and I agree with you, doesn't everybody determine their own justice then?
yes, and so what their justice is lacking in is wisdom. And so to make a more and so this is perfect. This is somehow related, even though I can't articulate it. This is related to what we were talking about. The goal is what justice even means, like that, because the word we say is justice is not the word that Socrates was using as justice. What the word that he was using was eukydinia, or but the word that Socrates used was orate, which is knife. And so when he talked about virtue, the word he used it was a knife, and it was the slang that they understood, and really what it meant was to cut through all the bullshit or to cut through the unknowledge, like okay, that's what virtue was a weapon to cut through the bullshit, and so justice was correctness or righteousness. I think is a better word that relates to what he was saying is justice, and so.
Okay.
And I think that still is in the word justice. We're just not putting it in that light. How we use justice is like fairness, protection of rights, would you say?
Yeah. Or like
The just rewards.
reward. Right.
Yeah. So, but okay, so we can see how that doesn't apply to when you say someone justified their actions. Justice is deeper than just the reward or their just deserts. Because even we use justified as something deeper. And I don't want to spend too much time on that, but what I'm getting at is that justice is more than, even though it's not at the front of our mind. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to make a connection to something else I want to talk about, but finish your thought.
Um, so, yeah, even though justice isn't at the front of our mind as righteousness, we actually use it as righteousness, even if unknowingly we use it as righteousness. And that's how the Greeks used it, is more of righteousness as justice. And yeah. So I would say that I wouldn't say that Hitler exhibited any of the virtues. He was not wise because the only time he was winning was when his generals were in charge. All of his economic plans failed. His government plans failed. They tried to coup him many times before he killed all of his political adversaries. Uh,
Can we use somebody else so I don't have to justify or
sure.
defend the
Well,
guy?
who's another big bad guy
I don't
in
know, but
history?
I'm just thinking.
Let's say Putin. Is Putin a virtuous man, would you say?
No, but there's wisdom in surrounding yourself. Like there's wisdom if I know that I can't win this war or if I can't run this company, but
Something
I
just happened with your microphone, but it's cool.
test.
It's good, good.
But I know I can't do it, but I bring in a cabinet that can, or I
Yeah,
bring in generals that can. That's wisdom. That's
that is
wise.
wise. Yeah,
So you would be
that's the
exhibiting
difference.
wisdom.
But well, that's the difference between accumulate what to think and how to think. Wisdom is not what to think. It's not the blocks that fill it up. It's how to think. So yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. Even if I'm not the smartest person in the room, me surrounding myself with smart people makes me wiser than all of them. Well,
So
in this example.
so the bad man did exhibit wisdom,
Yeah,
not justice. I mean,
well,
in his own
I mean,
mind, but
that's one small part of wisdom. That's one small example. The wisdom would have been to uh listen to the people smarter than him, but also the wisdom would have been to know himself and to know himself and know his economy. Or know the people that should have known his economy, know the people that should have known his people, to trust them. Or it was it obviously was not wise because it did not work. And it's because he did not know himself. Am I making sense? We keep going back to
I want to take it. I want to take it to a different.
Yeah,
Um, and this could completely derail us, but it
that's fine.
does. It does kind of fit. You've seen the videos probably of well,
CEO.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
that guy, the shooter, would have justified his actions,
yes.
and this makes me uncomfortable. But man,
I
a lot of
He knew
people,
he was breaking the law. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He knew that he was committing a crime for a virtuous reason
right?
to
But the
kill a
thing,
big bad man.
I've seen a lot of support for him,
Right.
like, which is weird. But like, what would that would you say that that was a just action?
I knew the guest that we were supposed to have today wanted to talk about this
Yeah.
because he was a
Well, he missed out.
I know.
You're just gonna have to comment in the comment section,
That's right. You can comment.
and we might allow it.
Also, let me say this. I'm another derail. We'll get back to the CEO shooting. I'm riddled with guilt and I need to get something off my chest to clear my conscience.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm only going to do it in a very specific way. Ashley Blackwood, if you are watching the podcast and you've made it to this far, I'm talking low because I don't want to interrupt you with the kids this morning. And B, I've been using your conditioner on my beard.
It looks great, dude.
I've been using your conditioner on my beard and it's fantastic. It smells like hibiscus. It's great. If you want me to stop, I know that's expensive conditioner. If you want me to stop, say something. But this is the only time I'm going to tell you right here on this podcast. So if you've made it this far, just let me know, hey, don't do that. No problems. And I won't. If you are okay with it, pretend like you didn't even see anything.
Oh, well, I was actually kind of hoping that like
Or,
she would comment, or that like somehow
yeah,
she would prove that she made it to this point.
perfect. Actually, Ashley, I'm going to ask you if you watch the podcast. And I'm going to ask you what'd you think? This might be getting me into trouble.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna,
Because later when she's like, "Yeah, I watched it," you're like, "Oh yeah, what'd you
no,
think about?"
I'm not going to ask that. This is the only time I'm asking about the conditioner. I'm just going to ask, Ashley, I'm looking at you. What did you think about the podcast? And if you say it was great, I'm going to say, I'm going to know that means I can continue using your conditioner.
Okay, deal.
And we're off of that.
Okay.
Ooh, conscious is clean. Glad I got that off my shoulders. Um, the CEO, shooting. Where are we getting at? Was it an example of justice? You'd say vigilante
Or
of justice.
courage or wisdom or whatever.
Mm. Was it wise for that guy to do that?
I mean, I'm kind of honestly puzzled about like
Do you think
in,
it was a pro? I've heard lots of everyone saying this is a pro, and I had some doubts. I'm going back and forth. I don't know if it's a pro. I think it was someone, maybe they used to be in the military, maybe it was a veteran, but everything this guy was wearing, including the gun and the silencer, was like $1,000 or more. The vest, the shoes, it was like these. It was all in the shooter world. This was a gun guy. It was all
what
like
what kind of gun was it?
it was the Shadow Systems, the same I have, which is a version of a Glock 19, and not but woo wee, it was
Are you
like
sure it's the
mine.
same you've got?
The same as, not mine. It was the same model. He so this is why I don't think he was a pro, because he was using a suppressor, silencer, both words work. Um, and after his first shot, he had a malfunction. And what that tells me is that he was using low pressure rounds. This is what you're supposed to do with a suppressor, is because if you use regular high power rounds through a suppressor, it's kind of it will significantly suppress it, but it's still going to sound like a gunshot. It like if you use high power rounds through the only way to get a suppressor to sound like it is in the movies, and even then it's not like the movies, is if you use low power rounds, low pressure rounds. And so this guy was using low pressure rounds. The problem was he was using too low pressure rounds. That's why the slide didn't go all the way back and he had that stovepipe. His first shot was a stovepipe. You know, pink, and you see him turn it to the side. He had a good clearing, He shot 2 more times, and then I think he had another malfunction. He had like 2 malfunctions. He cleared pretty good. But why I think that means he wasn't a pro was because a pro would have test fired that ammunition with that suppressor he would have properly function checked that weapon, like at the range, like how we did. We shot duty ammo at the range.
Yeah, but we also had misfires.
Yeah, but we weren't using a suppressor, and the misfires that we were using or that we had
Or
was
malfunction is the word I meant to use.
those were almost all caused by poor grip.
Right. And so that's actually, so I didn't know anything about pressure in rounds. So when you
Yeah.
started to say that, I was thinking, well, he must have just not had a good grip on the gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're saying that you think that it was caused by the rounds themselves?
Yeah, I think it was caused by the rounds themselves. I think he was using too low pressure rounds. I don't think he had shot that ammo with that suppressor before he went and did this.
Okay.
I think like his clothing suggests, and like even his weapon and his suppressor suggests, he got the best of everything. And maybe he had gone to the range, but I guarantee you didn't use that suppressor at the range. Had gone to the range and test fired all this stuff, and but didn't use that suppressor with that ammo because he had a good stance. You know, you can't assess someone's grip from that angle, but he had good shoulders and good elbows. He, like I said, maybe he is a veteran, or maybe he's just a gun tube guy. I don't think he's an assassin.
I don't know, man. One of the things that caught my eye was one, how he advanced. Like I think he had some training, whether
Sure.
law enforcement or military. He seemed very calm, cool, measured. Like he didn't panic. He just kind of went about his business.
Yeah, he had that e-cart or that e-bike waiting for him.
I think that you could make an assumption that maybe he's killed someone before.
Yes.
Maybe in
That's
combat,
why I think
maybe as an
veteran.
assassin, maybe, you know.
Also, someone who, I don't know, someone who could afford, because I don't see a veteran, unless, I don't know, I'm making a lot of generalizations. Veterans like me aren't gonna wear $1,000 tactical vest, puffy vest like this guy was wearing. Aren't gonna wear these $1,000 shoes. Like, these are the primo of the primo stuff that he had. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, I'm kind of maybe making some unfair or some weird generalization connections there.
but so everybody's kind of championing this guy.
Yeah,
And again, I had United Healthcare and they sucked.
they
Insurance
suck.
in general
We had
sucks. It's a racket.
It's a scam.
But
Yeah,
this
that's
dude,
our enemy.
as the CEO, like I know that he's in charge, but is in charge to the level that he's should be assassinated?
Oh well, I
Well,
don't know.
obviously we can't say should be, but you know what I'm saying? Like, does
Yeah,
it even make sense? Because that's not going to change the insurance industry.
no, that's the problem with anarchy. Like what we're seeing is the problem with real. That's not going to change. That's going to make, if anything, people are going to push for more gun laws. There's going to be tighter restrictions in New York, which is already draconian. You know,
But nobody's going to say we need to take a better look at how insurance handles claims.
right. That's why I'm saying that's not wise. And I think a courageous man is a wise man. And I think a wise man would have known that you're not helping anyone. Like the JFK assassination did not better the United States. It furthered the plan. It furthered the bad stuff because that opened the way for Johnson to come in and really flood Vietnam, to declare war on Vietnam. That didn't happen until after JFK's assassination. Like nothing good, nothing wise is going to happen from this assassination. I don't know if it ever has. And a wise man would see that. A wise man would at least take the time to evaluate it. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that's my confrontation. I don't know, me can make mixing the both. But like Socrates, I think there's a difference between irrational, like if anything, that was an emotional message to the establishment, even a thought out whatever message to the establishment, like we're not gonna take it. That's not wise because that's not true. That's not going to change. You are going to continue to take it, or you're going to get off the system. You're not helping anything by doing this. A wise person would know that. A wise person would know that this assassination is not going to help you. I know I'm keep trying to think of examples, but just come back to the most obvious one. And so I don't think this person was courageous. I think he might have been confident and competent. He was both of those things to a large degree, because he cleared the malfunction pretty easily, both of them. He was competent and he was confident. I don't think he was courageous, because I believe courage requires wisdom to a degree, and he wasn't. Even like I said, the Antifa or the ACAB or whatever, like the extreme anarchical view that this should happen is not that's not wise. And so that's the goal. That's what all of our goals should be. Whatever libertarian, Republican, Democrat, Antifa, whatever extreme label you want to put on yourself, you shouldn't be married to the label as much as you should be married to being the best. That's what your goal really should be, is to be the best. Like, if we want to be a voice for the people, we should be the best voice for the people. What does that mean? Well, that's going to require some wisdom.
Temperance.
It's going to definitely require some temperance. It's going to require, I would say, justness or righteousness might be a better word for it. It's going to require these virtues. To be the best is going to require these things. So all of this, like we were talking about before, it all comes off the rails whenever you avoid your guiding principle. What your guiding principle should be, and this crosses all religions, it crosses all denominations, it crosses all cultures. Your guiding principle should be the best. If it's not selfish, it should be the best, whatever the best version of that is. If I want to be but maybe that's asking too much for people, but I don't think that's asking too much for our leaders and for the people who say they're in charge. It's definitely not asking too much for people who call themselves wise.
Well, what's interesting is, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking about how easy it is to expect that from leaders.
Yeah.
But we don't generally expect that of ourselves.
From ourselves. Well, maybe we should.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we should. And Socrates would say you should. And so that's why Socrates, like Gandhi, they all kind of had the same message, and even Jesus in many different ways. You want to change the world, make yourself a good person. Like you, Justin, make yourself a good person. You, Clayton, I'm looking at my thing. Make yourself a good person. That's how you change the world. And because a good person, you could say, exhibits the fruits of the spirit. That's the Sunday school version of the virtues. But and I've been challenged with that a lot in the past, year or whatever, from people still in that world. And I would say that even the fruits of the spirit are further examples of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. I think Socrates said this, that love is a god, and he thinks she's a philosopher. Love is an unnamed god because of the power she has over people, but he thinks she's a philosopher. He thought that love was wise. Like, true love is true wisdom. If you're actually going to put someone before yourself and want the best for that person, you have to spend some time in evaluating, or else it's to a degree of more of an affection than it is a love. That was Socrates' view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a love specialist.
You're not the love doctor?
No, but never mind. But yeah, we go off the rails. Like you said, asking that of our leaders is maybe a step too far, or it is easy. Asking that of our leaders is easy, but asking that of ourselves is kind of too much. But maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe if you want to make if you want to make the world your best version of the world, you have to start with yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was in, so I think I'm on chapter 4, 3 or 4. And I think it was in the last chapter where they're talking about, if you want to be invited to a dinner party, what do? You invite someone to your house. So basically, and he elaborates on it, that you have to be what you want others to be. You have to treat people the way you want to be treated. But that's if we want our leaders to be wise and just and temperate, then we should do the same thing. If we
Yeah.
want people to treat us that way, then we should exhibit that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how you get it. And I would say even also that's how I have been unwise. And like my troubles in the past where I thought I was sticking it to the man or thought I was even being a righteous, virtuous voice, I was unwise because I did not evaluate, I wasn't treating people how I wanted to be treated. And
Mhm.
I wasn't thinking about, I wasn't playing things out, which would be the wise thing to do, which would be more virtuous. Because like we said before, if I wanted to really impact, I would have been wise and I would have made some strategic moves instead of the frontal assault that I usually chose to do.
Yeah.
And so it was not virtuous. I mean, to a degree. I don't want to put myself down. Like I think wisdom is like everything. There's a scale and you want to be the most. Like I thought I was acting with virtue, and to a degree, sure, I was, but it was not wise, and because it was not wise, it did not lend to my courage. It did not lend to the righteousness, the justice that I thought I was exhibiting. It was actually taking away from those because it was not wise.
Mhm.
And so that's the goal of I think should be life. I think the meaning of life. Did we just figure it out?
We got it. All right. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up, boys. Is to be good. To be good.
That that little section was really impactful to me. And I don't know why, because everybody's
What
heard the
book are you
golden
talking about?
How to Think Like
Socrates.
Socrates.
Donald
So
Robinson.
the that's the golden rule. We've heard that since we were kids.
Sure.
But something about it struck me to the point that what I want
I
to
got
do
4 minutes, by the way.
okay. What I want to do is like just identify the ways that I want people to treat me or the things that I would like. Um, how should I say it? What I want from people, right? Identify those things, and then make a practice of exhibiting those behaviors myself. You know what I mean? So if I
Yeah.
want encouragement, write it
Socrates would say
down.
you can't expect something from someone that you don't do yourself.
So I think maybe I want to try to be more intentional about it. So if
Yeah.
I want encouragement, if I want loyalty, if I want whatever, make a point to show that to someone without the goal of getting it back.
Right.
And that's tricky. Um, but yeah, I
Well,
think
you just have to change your goal. The goal the goal that's where the goal shifts. That's when you get from existentialism into internal stoic philosophy, and Socrates, like I said, was proto-stoicism, is you have to change the goal from wanting that from other people to just expecting that out of yourself. Because the only thing you can control is yourself. So the only thing you should desire is the actions of yourself. Maybe that's asking too much, but the only the only thing you can control is yourself. So and the goal has to shift from I want the world to be like this to this is how I'm going to navigate the world.
do you think that that's a natural progression that when you do good, that you find yourself doing good for the sake of goodness
Yes.
and not necessarily for the reward?
Yeah.
And
I
I think that you could probably even start by looking for, I want people to treat me this way, so I'm going to do it.
yeah.
But eventually, you may just end up treating people that way because it's right, and
Yeah.
because that doing good is its own reward,
Yeah.
not because people are
That's
going to.
that is wisdom. So that's the marriage of justice and wisdom. What you just exhiberated or
I
showed.
like that. I like that. I'm going to say that exhiberated.
Yeah, exhiberated. I
We
like that.
can add that to the.
We're getting too late. I got to sign off. Something I want to talk about some other time is I think the story of Jesus would have been almost a mirror of the story of Socrates, which happened 500 years before Jesus, if there had been any actual first person testimonies of Jesus. I think the problem is that I don't think there's any real first person testimonies of Jesus.
I had that conversation this week, but that'll be for another episode.
Yes, and I think Jesus is almost identical to Socrates. The problem is Socrates has at least two and more that claim to be first person records, and they all match. Like, we all know he died for living by his beliefs, challenging the system, living a virtuous life. Same thing happened to Jesus. Thing is that there was no secondhand mythology built off of it. We had enough first person records, so we didn't create a secondhand mythology. And I think that's what happened to Jesus. There, because of whatever, there were no first person, so it was all secondhand knowledge created the mythology. I think Jesus and Socrates are right there.
Interesting.
Another time.
All right. Hey, I'm supposed to give a shout out to Margaret.
Margaret?
And, yeah, and she would like to be a guest. So
Okay.
I'll just throw it out there.
Yeah, tell her to brush up on her philosophy and we'll be good.
There we go.
Or current
All right.
events, whatever. Later.
All right, see ya.